Why does the timeline that's located within the probable cause affidavit not line up? Hey everyone, it's Lucky from Unfiltered Lucky, and today I want to talk about the probable cause affidavit. Now, I've read the probable cause affidavit, I'm going to refer to it as the PCA, a number of times. And every time I read it, I feel like there's more discrepancies in a lot of these statements. So today I'm going to go through this PCA and talk about these discrepancies and what I see, kind of how my brain processes what is being said in this PCA. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to talk about the areas where I think there's some confusion. So basically, the PCA, the information is provided by Brett Payne, who is a police officer with the Moscow Police Department. According to the PCA, he's been a law enforcement officer for 4 years, and he's being assisted by members of Idaho State Police as well as the FBI. So I'm going to kind of, in the beginning, they kind of go through, he kind of recounts about how he's walking into the crime scene. So he talks about how he enters through the front door and he's directed to go upstairs. And this is where it all starts to unfold. So in the third paragraph, there's a part that says, as I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernodle's, laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. So immediately when he walks in the room and sees Xana's body, he can automatically tell that this crime has been committed with a sharp-edged blade. Now, it says also in the room was a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin. Now, Ethan Chapin's injuries are described as sharp force injuries. So he sees this immediately as he walks in the room. He can tell just by looking at the two victims exactly what their injuries were. Now, as he goes, as it reads through, he says, as I entered this bedroom, I could see two females in the single bed in the room. Now he's talking about, he entered Xana's room first and saw Ethan and Xana. Then he goes upstairs and he's saying he can see two females both laying in a single bed. He says both Kaylee and Maddie were deceased with visible stab wounds. So he knows just by a visual check when he first walks in the room that these victims' lives were taken with a sharp-edged object. Now he also says, I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Maddie's right side when viewed from her bedroom door. Now, I also later noticed, what does he mean later? Like, how much later? He didn't notice when he first walked into the room, when he first saw the bodies. He didn't notice the knife sheath. So how much later did he notice this knife sheath, which was partially under a comforter as well as partially under Maddie's body? So then he says that the Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA left on the button snap of the knife sheath. He doesn't mention anything else on this knife sheath. So this knife sheath is partially under Maddie's body. And there's no other DNA on this knife sheath. He doesn't mention that it's bloody. He doesn't mention anything else other than that small source of DNA that is on the button snap. So there's nothing else on this knife sheath. It's almost like somebody wiped the knife sheath down and placed it on this bed. So then he says, as part of the investigation, numerous interviews were conducted by Moscow Police Department officers, Idaho State Police detectives, and FBI agents. So interviews are being conducted by these 3 different agencies. Now, 2 of the interviews included are Bethany and Dylan, the surviving roommates. Basically, it's saying that Bethany and Dylan were inside the King Road residence at the time that the homicides occurred. Now he goes on to say, based on numerous interviews conducted by Moscow Police Department officers, state police, and FBI, he has learned the following. So he's stating that after these interviews, this is the conclusion that they have come up with after these interviews were conducted. So I'm going to skip through all the information about where all the roommates were earlier in the evening, because we've covered a lot of that. But I want to jump down to this part where it says Dylan and Bethany both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. So Dylan and Bethany both made statements that their roommates were home by 2 a.m. and that everyone in the house was asleep or at least in their rooms by 4 a.m. So this tells us that Dylan and Bethany were aware of what was going on in the house. Because how would Bethany know, being on the first level, how would Bethany know that all of the roommates were in their rooms or asleep by 4 a.m. if she's on the bottom floor and hasn't come out of her bedroom? How does Bethany know that? So Dylan stated she originally went to sleep in her bedroom on the southeast side of the 2nd floor. What does that mean? What does she mean that she originally went to sleep in her bedroom? To me, if she's saying I originally went to sleep in my bedroom, where did you end up if you originally started off in your bedroom? Where did you end up after that if you were just originally went to sleep in your bedroom? Also, it says that Dylan stated that she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the 3rd floor. So now Dylan has been woken up. Dylan's asleep, apparently, and now she's been woken up by the sound of what sounds like Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs. Now, Dylan's bedroom door is closed. So she obviously heard this because it woke her up. So she hears Dylan, what sounds like Dylan, playing with her dog on the upper level. It says a short time later, Dylan said that she heard who she thought was Kaylee say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." Again, her door is closed and she hears Kaylee say what she believes to be, "There's someone here." So this tells us that Dylan can hear inside her bedroom. Dylan can hear inside her bedroom with the door closed. So she heard these two sounds, but she didn't hear Kaylee and Maddie fighting for their lives on the top level. But she heard these sounds with her door closed, not expecting to hear any sound. So that's something to think about. This is something that's really important. And it says basically that Xana's phone showed this could have also been Xana saying there's someone here, because they believe from her cellular data that she was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. So they're saying there's a possibility that it could have been Xana that actually said this rather than Dylan. But either way, or Xana that said this rather than Kaylee. But either way, Dylan heard this with her door closed. And supposedly the sound was coming from the top level. Now, Dylan stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Xana's bedroom. Dylan then said that she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." So when I read that sentence, it makes me think that what if the intruders were dressed like law enforcement? Because why would he be trying to reassure Xana that he can help her unless she believes that he's in a position to be able to help her? Which, I'm not saying that these were law enforcement officers. I'm just saying, to me, that makes me believe that maybe these intruders were dressed as if they were in a position to be of assistance to Xana. Now, at approximately 4:17 a.m., okay, this is important. At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, which this house is basically right next door to the 1122 King Road house. So basically, this property is just 50 feet away from Xana's bedroom window. So this is basically a real close neighbor. So it says, at approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of the 1122 King Road house, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper, followed by a loud thud. Now it also says a dog can also be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17. It says the security camera is less than 50 feet from the window in Xana's bedroom. Now, it goes on to say that Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. Because we know that after she opened the door the third time, she apparently saw the intruder. Now, Dylan states that she did not recognize... Now, it says Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. So she didn't state that she recognized the male, but she also didn't state that she did not recognize the male. So she's not really saying whether she recognized the male or not. So then it says, this leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene because Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. I don't understand that. Why would it matter whether she recognized the male or not? And how would that be associated with whether the intruder left the crime scene or not? You know, so basically it's kind of reading like Dylan did not state that she recognized the male. So investigators thought that the murderer just left at that point. Now, the combination of Dylan's statements to law enforcement, review of forensic downloads of records from Bethany and Dylan's phone, and video of a suspect video as described below leads investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Those times are important to remember. So they're saying that the homicides began at 4 a.m., they believe, and ended at 4:25 a.m. Now, another part of this statement that really caught my attention is that they're basing the times that they believe these crimes were committed off of information from Bethany and Dylan's phones. So they were texting. Dylan and Bethany would have been texting during this time, or else they wouldn't have had cellular data during this time. So during this time, between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m., Bethany and Dylan are texting from their bedrooms. But they don't leave their bedrooms. They continue texting. They don't walk out into the house and talk to each other. They stay where they're at. But they were definitely awake and they were definitely texting, according to this affidavit. So we do know that they were awake. During the processing of the crime scene, investigators found a latent shoe print. So while forensics was investigating the crime scene, they found this shoe print that was basically hidden. Basically, it looks like somebody tried to clean it. Now, they're saying that they tested this shoe print by first using a presumptive blood test and then amino black, a protein stain that detects the presence of cellular material, body fluid. So what they're saying is that this shoe print tracked body fluid into the house in front of Dylan's door. That's where this shoe print was found. So the shoe print was there, but it wasn't obvious. So it looked like it had been cleaned up. It looked like somebody had tried to clean this shoe print. Now, it says the detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern, similar to the pattern of a Vans type of shoe, just outside the door of Dylan's bedroom. Now, it says basically this is consistent with Dylan's statement about the path of the intruder's travel. So, this footprint is right in front of Dylan's door. It appears to have been cleaned, and it is an obvious shoe print of a Vans sole, from a Vans shoe. That really caught my attention because I have looked at hundreds of pictures of Bryan Kohberger, and not in one picture have I seen Bryan Kohberger wearing Vans or any type of shoe really that would resemble Vans, other than this picture I'm about to post, and this is after he's already been detained. And this is the only picture that I have seen Bryan Kohberger wearing a Vans type of shoe. He just doesn't seem like the type of guy that would wear Vans. So then it says that a review of footage from, and I'm skipping through, so I'm skipping some of these paragraphs. I'm just kind of going to what caught my eye as being a little bit odd, maybe things that didn't make sense. So a review of footage from multiple videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of suspect vehicle 1 starting at 3:29 a.m. and ending at 4:20 a.m. Okay. These sightings now suspect vehicle 1 makes an initial 3 passes, drives by the 1122 King Road house 3 times, and then leaves via Walenta Drive. So based off of this officer's experience, what he's saying, as a patrol officer, this is a residential neighborhood with a very limited number of vehicles that travel in the area during the early morning hours. So he's basically what they're saying is from the footage that they've reviewed, they believe they start seeing this vehicle at 3:29 a.m. driving back and forth past the 1122 King Road house. It says that the suspect vehicle can be seen entering the area a 4th time at approximately 4:04 a.m. So remember that. It can be seen driving eastbound on King Road, stopping and turning around in front of 500 King Road, number 52, or Queen Road, I'm sorry, number 52, and then driving back westbound on King Road. When suspect vehicle 1 is in front of the King Road residence, it appears to unsuccessfully attempt to park or turn around in the road. So it wasn't trying to park on the property. Apparently it was attempting to park or turn around in the road. And they're saying that this is on King Road. The vehicle then continues to the intersection of Queen Road and King Road, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. So from the timeline that is stated in this PCA, they believe that these crimes began at 4 a.m. Now, at 4:04 a.m., it says in this PCA that the suspect vehicle can be seen basically looking for a place to park. So at 4:04 a.m., this white 4-door sedan is driving around looking for a parking place, which to me seems strange. This guy is getting ready to go in and take the lives of multiple people in this house, but first he's got to find good parking. So that was a little odd to me. Then it says the suspect vehicle 1 is seen departing the area of the King Road residence at approximately 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed. So they believe that these crimes took place between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. But here we have what law enforcement is presuming is Brian Kohberger's white 4-door sedan driving around the neighborhood looking for a parking place at 4:04. So Brian Kohberger, as the suspect, would still be driving around at 4:04. So by the time he parks his vehicle, exits his vehicle, and gets to the house, that could be another 5 minutes. And so it's already contradicting that they're putting the time that these crimes began at 4 o'clock. But at 4:04, Brian Kohberger is still, or not Brian Kohberger, let's say the white 4-door sedan is still driving around the neighborhood looking for a parking place. So it says that law enforcement officers providing video footage of suspect vehicle 1 to forensic examiners with the FBI that regularly utilize surveillance footage to identify the year, make, and model of an unknown vehicle that is observed by one or more cameras during the commission of a criminal offense. So what they're saying is law enforcement provided video footage to the FBI to see if they can identify this vehicle, and also they need to confirm that this is the same vehicle. Remember, this is a white 4-door sedan, so it's pretty common. You're probably going to see this white 4-door sedan on a lot of cameras in the area. So they give this footage to the FBI because they need the FBI to confirm that this is the same white 4-door sedan that's in each of these videos that they're piecing together at this time. So I thought that this was interesting and odd as well. So it basically says, so he's going to go through the credentials of the forensic examiner. He's going to point out all of the experience and credentials of this forensic examiner. So the forensic examiner has approximately 35 years of law enforcement experience with 12 years at the FBI. So this guy's been with the FBI for 12 years. His specific training includes identifying unique characteristics of vehicles, which I don't know what kind of unique characteristics there are of a white Hyundai, but this is what he specializes in. Specific training includes identifying unique characteristics of vehicles, and he uses a database that gives a visual clue of vehicles across states to identify differences between vehicles. So basically, this guy's an expert. This guy is an expert in identifying vehicles. So then it says, after reviewing the numerous observations of suspect vehicle 1, the forensic examiner, who has 35 years of experience, and he has very specific training in order to identify these vehicles by their year, make, and model. He initially believed that the suspect vehicle 1 was a 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra. So this forensic examiner, with all of these years of experience and this specific training in order to identify vehicles, got the year wrong if this is actually Brian Kohberger's white Hyundai. So with all that training and expertise, he didn't get the year right of the car. He said 2011 to 2013. Now, upon further review, he indicated it could also be a 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. Now, when did he go back and review what he had stated in the beginning? It says upon further review. When did this review happen? When did the further review happen? So, as a result, investigators have been reviewing information on persons in possession of a vehicle that is a 2011 to 2016 white Hyundai Elantra, which I imagine that there's millions of them out there. So then it says that on November 25th of 2022, that Moscow Police Department asked area law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra in the area. So when they say in the area, what do they mean by in the area? They haven't really defined what in the area means. Are we talking about a 1 mile radius? Are we talking about a 2 mile radius? Are we talking about a 10 mile radius? Also, I mean, a white Hyundai Elantra? So keep an eye out for a white Hyundai Elantra. Now, on November 29th, 2022, at approximately 12:28 a.m., Washington State University police officer Daniel Tiengo queried white Elantras registered at Washington State University. As a result of that query, he located a 2015 white Elantra with a Pennsylvania license plate. This vehicle was registered to Brian Kohberger. Now, it's got his address, and obviously it says that he lives in Pullman, Washington. Now, what I don't understand is that you're looking for a white Hyundai Elantra between the years of 2011 to 2016. And they put this in their database at Washington State University. And Brian Kohberger's the only one that comes up. Brian Kohberger's the only student there that has a white Hyundai Elantra registered to him at Washington State University. This is how they narrow it down to Brian Kohberger. On this whole entire campus, they narrow it down to Brian Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra. That just doesn't make sense to me. That doesn't make sense to me at all. It basically says that they run the plates to the car, and it comes back to Brian Kohberger. And it says basically that they look up his driver's license in the system, and they can see that this license indicates that Koberger is a white male with a height of 6 foot and weighs 185 pounds. Additionally, the photograph of Koberger shows that he has bushy eyebrows. Koberger's physical description is consistent with the description of the male Dillon saw inside the King Road residence on November 13th. She described the suspect as 5'10" or above. Not muscular, but not heavy set. And he had bushy eyebrows, dressed in black. That could be a majority of males out there. But somehow they just narrowed it down to Brian Koberger. But I mean, how many males out there are over 5'10" and have bushy eyebrows? I mean, I don't know. So basically, he's saying that Koberger's physical description is consistent with the description of the male, along with millions of other males as well. So it goes through his tickets, the times that he was pulled over in his car. He was pulled over August 21st, 2022. He was also pulled over on October 14th, 2022. And this is kind of how they're relating the car to Brian Koberger to, they're using all this information, video, to try to determine a path and to try to connect this car to the video footage. So the first time that Brian Koberger was pulled over on August 21st, he does provide his phone number to law enforcement. And that's how they begin to start looking into his phone records. Now, he voluntarily provides his phone number to law enforcement officers. Now, I've been pulled over and I've never been asked for my phone number. They look at my license, my registration, and my insurance. I've never not once been asked for my phone number. But he did give them his phone number voluntarily. So, as they're looking through his phone records, it basically says these records also showed that he was in this area a number of times. And we're definitely going to get to that here in a second. Now, it says that his records, his records from Washington State University show that Koberger wrote an essay when he applied for an internship with the Pullman Police Department in the fall of 2022. So Koberger had just applied for the Pullman Police Department just months before these crimes occurred. Now, it says that Koberger wrote in his essay he had an interest in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. So he's basically in his essay stating that he's interested in analyzing technological data in order to help law enforcement solve crimes. Now, this was something that a lot of people probably heard about, and that was Koberger also posted a Reddit survey, which can be found by an open source internet search, which the survey asked for participants to provide information to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. So he's asking this to people who have formerly committed these crimes. He's asking this question on Reddit, and a lot of people have kind of assumed that this could mean that he's trying to get information because he wants to commit a crime. So he's asking these people how they committed their crimes and trying to gather information. He's also working on his PhD in criminology. So this could definitely be a big part of his schoolwork. And I mean, it would be a lot more weird if he was asking this question on Reddit and didn't have a background in criminology and the education of criminology, but he does. So it doesn't seem weird to me that he is looking for information. Now, the affidavit basically says that a query of the 8458, which is the last four digits of the phone number that he is apparently using at this time, phone in these returns did not show his phone utilizing cellular tower resources in close proximity to the King Road residence between 3 o'clock and 5 a.m. So basically what they're saying is they don't pick up his phone in between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. in the area of the King Road residence, which we don't know what that area is. We don't know what the proximity is. So this could be on the same street, in the same neighborhood, or even in the same town. We don't know the proximity. Now, this officer says, based on my training, experience, and conversations with law enforcement officers that specialize. Now, he continues to go back and go over the credentials of these people because he wants us to know that these people are knowledgeable in their field and that they're trained to deal with these very situations. So he says, based on my training, experience, and conversations with law enforcement officers that specialize in the utilization of cellular telephone records as part of investigations, individuals can either leave their cellular phone at a different location before committing a crime, or they could just turn their cell phone off prior to going to a location to commit the crime. This is done by subjects in an effort to avoid alerting law enforcement that a cellular device associated with them was in a particular area where a crime was committed. So Brian Kohberger has all this knowledge, and he knows, he's aware that his cell phone is going to be detected from cell phone towers in these areas. He knows this, obviously, because they believe that he turned his phone off to conceal that he was in that area. So Brian Kohberger's planning this. He's thinking about this. This is well orchestrated. So Brian Kohberger, as he's going to the crime scene, as he's going to take the lives of multiple people in a house, he's thinking about his cell phone and thinking about how he can be detected from his cell phone. But he's not thinking that he's sitting in his own personal car that's registered to him. So he's thinking ahead about his cell phone and being found and being located by his cell phone. He's thinking that far ahead, but he's not thinking, hey, I'm in my own car driving to a crime scene where I'm going to take the lives of multiple people, and this car is registered to me. He's not thinking about that, but he is thinking about these cell phone towers. So we'll skip through to where basically it says at approximately 2:47 a.m., Brian Kohberger's phone stops reporting to the network, which is consistent with either the phone being in an area without cellular coverage. The connection to the network is disabled. Now, then they state that Brian Kohberger's phone does not report to the network again until approximately 4:48 a.m. So they believe that he's turned off his phone or that he's put his phone in airplane mode because he's aware that if his phone is on, they can locate him by these cellular towers that can put his phone in an area. Now, What that area is, we don't know. How small that area is. What's the radius of this area that this cell phone tower will detect a cell phone? So he's thought about all of this, but he's still driving around in his own personal vehicle. So it goes on to say that specifically the 8458 phone, Brian Kohberger's phone, utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residents between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. the morning of the 13th. But what is the size of that coverage area? That's important because they're using a lot of words like near, in the area. We don't know what that means because that hasn't really been detailed about how far is near. How big is in the area? This is something we don't know, and that's kind of critical to know because if they're going to make it sound like he's basically right next to the house, how big is this coverage area? I mean, this coverage area is not just covering that house, the house at 1122 King Road. It's a coverage area. So he could be anywhere in this coverage area. The fact that he's in this area isn't surprising. This is a college area. There's a lot of students that live in this area. So did Brian Kohberger have a friend in this area? Was he buying narcotics in this area? We don't know, but we don't know how big this coverage area is. So we don't even know how close to the house that his phone is. So that's definitely something to think about. Now, they're also saying that his phone was picked up on a tower that would provide coverage to the King Road residents between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. And that's in the area of the King Road house. But again, he's in an area that would provide coverage to the 1122 King Road house. We don't know how big that coverage area is. So that would be important to know. Now, this I thought was really interesting because it says investigators found that Brian Kohberger's phone did connect. It did connect to a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow on November 14th, 2022. So the day after these crimes occurred. But then it says investigators do not believe that the 8458 phone, Brian Kohberger's phone, was in Moscow on that date. So a cell phone tower that provides service to Moscow, Idaho, on November 14th, the day after the crimes occurred, picks up Brian Kohberger's phone in this area again, but law enforcement doesn't believe that his phone was in Moscow on that date. So they don't believe that so his phone is picked up in this area, but they don't believe that his phone is in this area. So there's a discrepancy there. How reliable are these cell phone towers? If they're picking up his phone in this area, but they don't believe that his phone is in this area, so would that be an error? And I mean, you basically based your whole case on following this white sedan around and trying to connect it to these cell towers. So the fact that this cell tower did pick up Brian Kohberger's phone in Moscow, Idaho on the 14th, the day after the crimes, but law enforcement doesn't believe that his phone was in that area, it was just picked up in that area, that really doesn't make sense. But it also makes me question the reliability of these cell phone towers and how reliable, this information is. So then it goes on to say that the records for Brian Kohberger's phone show that his phone is utilizing cellular resources, so he's in the area, that provide coverage to the area of 1122 King Road on at least 12 occasions prior to November 13th, prior to the morning of the crimes occurring. They're saying that Brian Kohberger's phone was in this area at least 12 times. But again, we don't know how big that area is. So Brian Kohberger could have been in this area. You know, he may have a friend in this area. He may have an acquaintance in this area, but we don't know how big this area is. So they keep saying this area around 1122 King Road. Well, how big is that area? I mean, is it 5 square miles? We don't know that. So basically, I feel like, as I've read this, and I've read this affidavit a few times, and just kind of picked it apart, a lot of it is contradictory to itself. There's a lot of generalization. There's a lot of, near, in the area. There's a lot of words being used that would not, that don't say to me that this is a solid piece of information. So the language in the affidavit, which how things are stated in an affidavit is really important. So the language in this affidavit in a lot of areas is contradictory. How did the crimes begin at 4 a.m., but yet Brian Kohberger is still driving around at 4:04 a.m. looking for a parking place? How did the crimes end at 4:25, but Brian Kohberger's car allegedly is seen speeding away from the crime scene at 4:20? You got to remember, he still had to leave the house and get to his vehicle. So what was going on? So if we're missing 7 or 8 minutes in that timeline, that's a lot. 7 or 8 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time in life in general, but it's a lot of time when you're considering that the entire timeline of what they're reporting these crimes occurred in is within 25 minutes. So 7 or 8 minutes taken out of 25 minutes, that's a lot of time. It's not a lot of time in the grand scheme of things, but if you have a timeline of 25 minutes in which law enforcement thinks that these crimes occurred, and you can't account for 8 of those 25 minutes, that's almost a third of all of the time that they're stating these crimes took. So although 4, 5, 6 minutes doesn't sound like a lot of time, it is a lot of time when you're talking about a 25-minute window of time. So stay tuned for my next video. We're going to talk about some more elements of this house, mainly the spare bedroom. Because as I said, I believe that this spare bedroom has a lot of significance when it comes to this crime. I'm also right now working on my video of my theory. I've been talking about my theory in my past videos, and now I'm getting ready to tell you all about my theory and what I believe happened and how I believe that things happened. Now, I just want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes to my channel, and thanks to everybody who comments on my videos. That really means a lot to me, and I do read the comments because I also want to hear other people's ideas. I want to know what you guys think about how these crimes occurred. And for me, I'm just relaying my ideas in how my brain works when I'm looking at all this information. But I definitely want to hear about, your ideas and what you think happened, in this crime. So stay tuned for my next video. Please like and share and follow, and we'll see you next time.